Hello everyone! In this video, we will tackle sociolinguistics and present some concepts of it so that you could have a better understanding towards this topic. First, we will discuss about the definition of sociolinguistics and the scope of this discipline. Let us discuss the context of sociolinguistics. There are some social factors that affect our language use. The social background, the relationship between the speaker and the receiver, and the context and manner of interaction. These factors are said to have significant effects on how the way we use language in our daily interaction. Question is, how did these factors affect our language? This is where sociolinguistics takes place. Sociolinguistics is a field of discipline that studies how these factors affect language use. Take this illustration. The way we use language with our friends is not the same as we use it with our employer. For example, if you are to request your friend to bring something, you would say, "Can you bring the book?" But if you are to request your employer, you would say, "Could you bring the book, please?" See, we tend to be more formal in our language use with our employer than with our friends. Our way of speaking shifts, and it depends on who we are talking to. If we're talking to our friends or relatives, we could speak casually since there's no need to be formal, right? But if we're having a conversation with our teacher or manager at work, we tend to speak more polite and firm. So, this example proves that the relationship between the participants affects our language use. That is sociolinguistics. Sociolinguistics is a field of inquiry that scientifically studies the relationship between language and society. That is how social factors affects our use of language. Now that you know the context about sociolinguistics and its definition, we will now move on to the scope of sociolinguistics. So, some of you might ask, why do we need to study the relationship between language and society? The first answer to that question is that language and society are interrelated and we cannot speak about one without the other. How does language and society relates to each other? Well, here's the answer. Language is defined as a social entity, and defining society cannot be done without referring to language. Next, society is defined as a group of people who share the same language. So, do you get the idea? You can't talk about language if it's not acknowledged by any society. Same goes for another. It's impossible to identify a group of people as a society unless they share the same language. Therefore, language and society is related to each other. This is also confirmed by Hudson. We cannot take the notion language X for granted, since this is in itself a social notion, insofar as it is defined in terms of a group of people who speak X. The second reason why we need to study language in relation to society is due to the fact that the value of language is based on the society and the people who use that language, not on the language itself. What does that mean? We tend to judge a language based on the attitude we hold for the people who use that language. For example, if I have a positive attitude towards Japanese people for a reason, it is more likely to hold a positive attitude towards their language too. That is the main point of this idea. Your preference to language is not based on the language itself. It is based on the people who use that language.
Another reason is due to the fact that language is an act of identity. This means that language plays an essential role in understanding and defining ourselves and others. For example, from one's way of speaking, we can say whether a person is a man or a woman, educated or not. There are times that we know that a person is smart because of the way he or she talks. The choice of words, use of language, and pronunciation are sometimes enough to determine the intellect of individual. From one's language use, we can also say which social class he or she belongs to, where is he or she from, etc. Hence, we can say language has clue-bearing function, which means that one's language use provides clues and hints that define who they are. By observing the speaking behavior of people, we can determine their identity, their attitudes, their manners, and even their whole personality. The fourth reason of studying relations between language and society is that language plays an essential role in understanding social entourage and world around us. From the way we think to the way we perceive things is all determined by the language we use. Here's the point. In order to study or talk about any group of people and their way of life, it is highly recommended to prepare the language they use. This is called superverb hypothesis. For example, if you happen to travel in China, then you have to learn and adapt to their language in order to communicate among Chinese people. That's the point of this reason. Lastly, we need to study the relationship between language and society, because language is not only a means of communication in society, but it is also means establishing and maintaining social relationships through exchanging the free goods or safe topics. In every society, these aspects are mandatory or obligatory, otherwise your behavior would be accountable. For example, imagine your friend passed away by you and did not greet you. How will you explain your friend's behavior? Of course, you would hold negative attitudes toward your friend's behavior.
With these reasons in our mind, we could generally conclude that it is very important to study language in relation to society, because there is a strong relationship between them and they cannot be separated. We will hop on to the main discipline of sociolinguistics.
Sociolinguistic. What is sociolinguistic? Linguistic is a scientific study of language and its structure and has several specific branches of study such as applied linguistic, psycholinguistic, historical linguistic, and sociolinguistic. Sociolinguistic. It concerns the study of language used in the society and the study of language used in sociocultural contexts. It studies about how people vary in their language use and provides explanation to their linguistic variation. Here's some example. He ain't coming and I already sent you la. It also describes language varieties between different ethics and social classes, and also the gender and age group. Apart from that, it describes the changes of language variety, how the speech community maintains the variety, and the and the reason for language death. How can we define sociolinguistics? By Trogil, 1974. Sociolinguistics is the part of linguistics which is concerned with language as social and cultural phenomenon. It investigates the field of language in society and has close connection with the social sciences, especially social psychology, anthropology, human geography, and sociology. How does social language become a social phenomenon? Language is one of the most important forms of human behavior. Social linguists believe that speaking is always a social act. There are 7 characteristics of language, which is: number 1, language is arbitrary. Number 2, language is social. Number 3, language is symbolic. Number 4, language is systematic. Number 5, language is vocal. Number 6, language is instinctive and conventional. And lastly, language is productive and creative. Language is social. When it used in a social group that involves at least 2 persons, the speaker and the hearer, Oyewo 2000 believes that the 3 most important functions of language is communication are to reveal the self, to express the values, and to convey meaningful message. Well, we know that in this language of social phenomenon. What is language as cultural phenomenon? There is a variation in language and it can come in many forms. The variation can be caused by various possible social, historical, cultural, educational, and political impact, and at the same time, the variation creates cultural diversity. Holmes, 1992. The sociolinguist aim is to move towards a theory which provides a motivated account of the way language issue in a community and of the choices people make when they use language. Therefore, to sum up, sociolinguistics is a study of relationship between language and society. It helps to identify the role of language in society and how the society affects the language. It helps to understand why we speak differently in various social contexts. It helps to uncover the social relationship in a community.
We hope that this video is helpful in providing insights about sociolinguistics. If you have questions or any other ideas, feel free to leave us some comments. Thank you very much.